official. I see Nick there, so.
Linda, are we
Go
ready?
ahead and start it. Just one moment.
Okay, let me know.
Okay, the webinar
I'm
is
gonna
happening.
print,
Then
Kate, have you heard from
Recording
Cheryl?
in progress.
Ready. Okay. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Hayward City Council Sustainability Committee. And we will, I'll call this meeting to order, and we'll start with a roll call, which just to be official since we're on Zoom.
yes, good evening. We'll start roll call. Mayor Halliday.
Here.
Councilmember Marquez.
Present.
Councilmember Zeneva.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's proceed to public comments, and I don't see any hands raised. Is there anyone either on the committee or attending the meeting who would, I actually do see a hand raised now. Peter Myers, can we put him on?
Hello, this is Peter Myers. Yes.
Hello. Yes, you can be heard. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm here at the invitation of Councilmember Marquez. Just wanted to let everybody know about an item that can be added to a future agenda, the Zero Emission Vehicles 2030. More information is available at zev2030.org. And I can share information, or if Councilmember Marquez already has that information that she'd be able to share, a one-pager, or I can certainly resend it to the committee. We are an organization based out of Oakland, working to build a California statewide consensus around a 2030 goal for 100% of passenger vehicles being zero emission vehicles. So that is battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, other alternative fuels that are not based on millions of years old dinosaur bones. The case for this is clear. Science tells us that we have about 9 years to turn things around and move toward a carbon neutral economy, and especially a carbon neutral transportation fleet. 40% of California's greenhouse gas emissions are based off of passenger vehicles and transportation in general. And so we are circulating a petition, a pledge at zev2030.org that anybody as an individual can sign, including several members of the council have already voted to support this, or pledged to support this. And we, right now, multiple cities are also considering joining the pledge. So City of Richmond has already pledged. City of Berkeley will be voting tomorrow for an even more aggressive target than our goal, as well as the Alameda County Democratic Central Committee has already voted in support of this pledge. And I believe Lake County Democratic Central Committee has already voted in support. So if anybody has questions for that, you can find more information on our website, zev2030, zev2030.org. And my contact information is peter@nextgeneration.org. And I'm always available to answer questions on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could I just ask you to repeat the website again?
Yeah, so it's
ZEV, right?
ZEV, yeah, so for zero emission vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
zev2030.org.
Oh, okay. That's
And cities so far have been considering this as part of their, oftentimes the cities that have been taking this up so far have not found it to be so controversial, and have managed to have gone on and put it on their consent calendar. So that's certainly, if the city of Hayward chose to do that, that would certainly be an option.
all right. Well, thank you for the information and for the work you're doing. I'm sure we're there in spirit, and we'll consider responding to your request.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else wish to make a public comment? Where we move on to our reports and action items. All right, seeing no one, we'll move on to the first item, which is approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 11th, 2021.
I'll move the item, Mayor.
Thank you. Moved by Councilmember Marquez, seconded by Councilmember Zermania. And I'm in favor as well. So the motion, I believe, passes unanimously. Unless anyone objects, which I'm seeing no one doing. So we will move quickly on to the next item, which is a review. No, that's not right, is it? Yeah, review and comment on the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan is next.
Madam Chair, just wanted to mention that the item is supposed to be presented by Cheryl Menos, our Water Resources Manager. I saw that she was having problems signing on. She was on and now off. If you don't mind, we move to the next item first, which is an update on recycling industry and Hayward's recycling program.
No, I don't. Do either of you have any objections to that, Council Members Marquez or Zermania? Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Let's move on to that. I see we have, someone here with interested in that item. So why don't we go ahead and take that one up next? So we're going to consider the update on the recycling industry and Hayward's recycling programs.
And Eric Pearson, our Environmental Services Manager, is here to introduce the item. Eric?
Okay, Eric, take it away.
Hi there. Good evening, Mayor, Council members, and community members. Jeff Crump is going to kick this off and introduce a few folks that are joining us here from Waste Management and from TriSed. So go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, I'm Jeff Crump. I'm the Solid Waste Manager for Hayward. And before I share my PowerPoint, I wanted to introduce Michael Peltz from Waste Management, who is their major account manager for Waste Management's recycling services and responsible for the marketing of the majority of the material that goes through Waste Management's Northern California MRFs. And also we have Richard Valle, who is the vice chair of the Statewide Recycling Commission and also the CEO of TriSed, which provides the recycling services to Hayward's single-family homes and several of the multifamily dwellings in Hayward. And Michael's going to give an update on the recycling markets after I give a brief PowerPoint. I'm trying to share my screen here. First, I got to share the screen before I open the PowerPoint. Sorry, guys. There we go. Does that look okay?
Yes, very good.
Okay. So what I'll do is give an overview of the Statewide Recycling Commission which will provide an overview of the recycling industry and how it can affect Hayward's recycling programs. And then, as I said, Michael Peltz will give an update on the recycling markets. So in July of 2020, the governor formed the Commission on Recycling Markets and Curbside Recycling. And this was done in response to a severe downturn in the recycling markets. And the purpose of this commission is to provide policy recommendations to CalRecycle and other agencies regarding the state's ambitious recycling and organics recovery goals and the current state of the recycling industry. And so the commission was required and did deliver a preliminary report in January of 2021. And then they are required to deliver policy recommendations on July 1st of 2021. And the whole reason that the commission exists is because until about 3.5 years ago, the vast majority of recyclables, particularly paper and plastic from the United States, were sent to China. And China instituted a policy called National Sword, where they basically refused to accept any plastic or paper, which turned the recycling markets on their head. And what resulted was vast amounts of baled plastics and paper not having a market, and the processors struggling to move them. and some of it had to be landfilled. And so the commission was formed, and in January, they came out with their preliminary report, and they had several policy recommendations, but they fell into 4 basic categories that I listed here. And these are, it's my paraphrasing of the basic categories that the commission's report said. And the first item is stop the fires, which actually doesn't have anything to do with the China National Sword policy. There's been a vast increase in fires at material recovery facilities and truck fires as well. And these have mainly been caused by lithium ion batteries not being disposed of properly. People are putting them in their recycling carts or in the trash, where they really should go to a household hazardous waste facility, such as the one we have here in Hayward at 2091 West Winton. And there's another one nearby in Fremont on Boyce Avenue or Boyce Road. The second basic category of recommendations was to reduce contamination. Contaminated recyclables are very hard, if not impossible, to market. And part of that recommendation as well is to reduce packaging. Manufacturers are over packaging their products, which is making it challenging for the recycling industry as well, because much of that material is not recyclable. And the third category of recommendations was to reconfigure market development efforts. And this really means focus on making domestic markets. And this can have benefits for the environment because we're not shipping things as far, and also for the economy here in California. And then the fourth area was to ensure environmental and social responsibility. And that really entails joining the Basel Convention, which is an international treaty on waste management, which basically bans the sending of waste to countries that are known to allow unsafe methods of processing recyclables and irresponsible disposal methods. So here is where I'd invite Richard, the vice chair of the commission, to add any insights if he wanted to on the commission or the report, or maybe you could just help answer questions at the end if you'd like, Richard.
Thank you, Jeff. I sit on, we have 4 subcommittees, just for information. They are the Market Development, Organics, Recycling, and Labeling Media Committees. I sit on the Recycling Committee. And I'm going to just very quickly tell you, before Michael gives you his presentation, that this subcommittee on recycling created basically 7 criteria for what can be recycled at your curb. And I'll go through them very quickly. Number 1, anything accepted in local recycling programs. This is the minimum threshold. Anything accepted by curbside recycling service providers, anything separated by MRFs into individual bales, those items that are processed into a manufacturing input, those items that can be used to make new products, those items that have market demand and maintain value, and those items that are not toxic and do not contaminate products. And the list that we came up with of items that meet all of those 7 criteria are basically 15 items. And I'll give you an example. There's only 2 metals that we recommend be recycled at the curb: aluminum cans and steel cans. That's all. Plastics, 3 plastics. PET bottles, number 1. HDPE bottles, number 2, that are natural color, which are white like milk jugs. And number 3, colored HDPE bottles, which would be like detergent bottles and so forth. And that's it for plastics. So the list is only 15 items, and there's only 2 glass items that should be recycled at your curb, and that's bottles and jars. So based on this criteria, the hardest part for residents in Hayward or Los Angeles, based on this statewide list, will be changing behavior and not putting everything else into that recycling cart, but putting it into the garbage. So if those items, that criteria was set based on audits of all of the MRFs in the state of California and what we're having to landfill, nearly 40% of what comes into our facility from Hayward and Union City is going to a landfill. So that gives you a sense of the detailed work that we've done so far and the work that we have to do going forward to not only encourage people to do the right thing, but change the behavior. And I think I'll leave it at that, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Richard. All right, if we haven't stolen everything that you want to say, Michael, this is your slide here to speak to.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you, Jeff, and thank you to the members of the committee for inviting me. I typically like to speak extemporaneously, but in the interest of time, I hope you'll bear with me while I adhere more closely to my text. So needless to say, during the past 2 to 3 years, there hasn't been a dull moment in the world of recyclable commodity marketing. You've all heard about China, which finally shut their doors completely to scrap imports at the end of 2020. The magnitude of the shift that occurred and is still occurring is nothing short of astounding. In 2015 and 16, for example, when the US recovered about 50 million tons of paper and paperboard for recycling, scrap paper exports to China reached their peak at over 15 million tons. That's 30% of what was recovered. All 15 million tons had to find another place to go. In California, we have a very small domestic paper mill sector. So we were more dependent on China, and we're still more dependent on export markets in general to sustain our recycling efforts. One of the important legacies or lessons of the China shocks, so to speak, starting with Operation Green Fence in 2013 and then National Sword in 2017, is that the entire supply chain has to produce a quality product. We need to institutionalize our vigilance about quality control and contamination, and we've had to make deliberate investments to that end. Following China's lead, other fast-growing scrap importing countries have announced more demanding limits on contamination, generally 2 to 3%, fortunately more reasonable than the 0.5% limit imposed by China prior to their total ban. To enforce the quality mandate, we're also seeing some countries, notably Indonesia, require or consider so-called live on-site inspections of scrap cargo while loading containers. So what's replacing China now? In 2018, as China's plastics recycling sector saw no future in that country, operators pursued opportunities to relocate to alternative locations in the United States, Asia, and Latin America. Scrap plastic processing and imports increased rapidly in Vietnam, Malaysia, India, Thailand, and Indonesia. As these countries experienced a rapid influx of new plastics processing operations and imported feedstock, they quickly began to feel the inadequacy of their ports, other logistical and regulatory infrastructure, and their environmental protection measures. It wasn't much later that we started to hear about Southeast Asian countries enacting or considering restrictions on scrap imports, mostly directed at plastics. Many of them announced temporary or permanent bans on the import of scrap plastics during 2018-2019. The growth of scrap paper imports into non-China South and East Asia has evolved much differently and is proving much more enduring than that for plastics. Underpinning the booming waste paper demand in these regions is not only the growth in their domestic markets for paper products, but China's new appetite for recycled pulp to replace the banned waste paper imports to keep their mills adequately supplied with fiber. All of China's largest containerboard mills and still others are starting new mills or paper machines outside China to secure adequate supplies for finished product in China. Just last week, Nine Dragons, one of China's largest paper companies, announced a $1.2 billion investment in Malaysia's containerboard industry. Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Taiwan, and South Korea are all important recovered paper markets for California right now, and others are likely to emerge in the years to come. India is also among the high growth leaders, but ocean freight costs favor East Coast ports as India's primary source of US supply. While the market adjustment to the closure of China has been fairly robust, the transportation infrastructure has been less than accommodating. These last few months, there's been a serious lack of ocean-going transportation service for scrap and other commodity exports to Asia from the US, and the Port of Oakland has been particularly hard hit. Lack of vessel space and containers for scrap, port congestion, and other logistical problems are causing widespread buildup of scrap paper inventories up and down the West Coast, especially in Northern California. The underlying web of causation is somewhat complicated, but perhaps most important, China has been short of containers and vessel space for their higher value exports, so steamship lines have been sending more empty containers there to address the shortfall. In addition, we're seeing employee absences and other COVID-induced conditions at ports that have caused slowdowns, vessel schedule changes, and congestion. A little bit about the plastics recycling controversy. Although plastics represent only 3 to 5% of the recovered materials in residential single stream and about 10% of the total residential waste stream, plastics seem to garner most of the public attention and generate the most controversy today. Therefore, I want to share a bit more about plastics. No doubt the controversy stems from reports and testimony that some of the scrap plastics have been handled irresponsibly. There's no question that there are many scrap plastics processors abroad who have operated in violation of our environmental and labor standards, and often even in violation of the standards and regulations of their own countries. Much of this abuse has likely taken place in the course of importing mixed plastics from the US and elsewhere, opening the bales, typically a mix of 3 through 7 plastics or 1 through 7 plastics, and sorting out the desired items of value and discarding the undesirable materials, in some cases improperly. As you may have heard, Waste Management took an aggressive position on this in 2019 when we announced that we would no longer ship residential plastics processed at our own single-stream MRFs outside of North America. Since then, as the overseas markets for mixed 3 through 7 plastics have diminished and become highly unreliable over the past couple years, WM Waste Management and many other processors in California have increasingly shifted to sorting out only the resin types with more consistent markets, particularly PET, HDPE, and polypropylene. And we've been able to move everything we produce to customers in North America. For example, much of our PET in California goes to Our Planet Earth in Vernon, where it's made into products for for the food and beverage market, and to Mohawk Industries in Somerville, Georgia, where it's made into fiber for carpeting. Hayward's PET bottles, which are collected, sorted, and baled by TriSed, are manufactured into food-grade pellets and flake at Peninsula Plastics Recycling in Turlock. And your HDPE milk jugs and detergent bottles are converted into landscaping edging and other related products at Epic Plastics in Lodi. I'd like to conclude by saying I'm pleased to see you're already devoting attention to the preliminary policy recommendations of the State Commission on Recycling Markets and Curbside Recycling. I should say first that the model for this advisory body and probably where the idea was hatched was right here in Alameda County at Stop Waste's National Sword Task Force. And its formation is a testament to the activism of TriSed's president, Richard Valle, who is serving as the commission's vice chair. The commission grew out of an interest of all the state's recycling stakeholder groups in fixing a somewhat broken system, which is partly responsible for the current recycling rate of roughly 37%, falling far short of the state's goal of 75% by 2020. Among the many issues and policies its members addressed in a very short time, the Commission's report released its first recommended statewide list of recyclables and compostables, which Richard referred to just a moment ago, which should become a useful guide for jurisdictions to review their own list for compatibility with the realities of the marketplace. I encourage you to stay tuned to the findings and proposals of the Commission, and I appreciate your continued support for our local recycling infrastructure. Thank you, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions if there's time.
Jeff, if I could add just one more thing to the conversation with regard to the fires. In Hayward, over the last 12 months, we've had 3 fires in 3 different trucks in 3 different neighborhoods. Those fires took place during our regular routes in Hayward. In all 3 cases, we had to drop the material before the Hayward Fire Department would attack the fire on the street and drop the materials on the street, spread it out so they could douse the fire. In one of the 3 fires, we lost the entire truck. And this is not uncommon. This happens at least once or twice a year, either in Union City or Hayward. And it's because people are putting lithium batteries into the recycling and not in battery bags, which has to be collected separately at the curb. And so that's a very real and dangerous problem for us. In one of those 3 fires, one of our drivers was hurt because he was reaching for his fire extinguisher. And now we had a workers' comp claim, not related specifically to the fire.
Thanks, Richard. I was going to mention when I was talking about that TriSed had a fire just like 2 weeks ago, I think, in one of your trucks.
I would mention too that, you know, at our facilities at the OMRF at Davis Street and our flagship MRF in Sacramento, we've had multiple fires due to lithium batteries and also propane tanks. And in fact, we've had to institute an entirely new and more aggressive fire prevention strategy on our sort lines in order to address this, because otherwise we'd have really significant fires.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, with that, we can open it up for questions.
Okay. Okay, I have a few, but I will go to my colleagues first. Council members Marquez or Zerbino, you have questions right now? Could you take the, yeah, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, Council member Zerbino, who is our representative to Stop Waste, correct?
Thank you. I'm on mute now. Okay, very good. So it looks like we have to really do a very good job in educating our residents, not only in the Union City and in Hayward, but all throughout California and the United States. And we also have to push Amazon to not do so much packaging. Last time I bought something in Amazon, and that's like once in a blue moon. there was a huge box for a smaller article. That does not help. Okay. My disappointment in the presentation by both Supervisor Valle and Waste Management is that I see nothing at all about having the United States come up with a plan to handle our own garbage. We want to be content. We want to continue sending our garbage overseas. We are the largest country in the world. We are the richest country in the world. We are the most industrious country in the world, and we cannot handle our own garbage. I'm disappointed that I didn't see anything from Waste Management or from TriSet about, the commission. The commission that was formed by California does not list start our own garbage disposal system. So that's my disappointment. So we have to educate and we have to handle our own garbage. And I must say, I'm kind of glad that China said no more and all these countries say no more. We need to handle our own garbage. That's something that my wife and I do. On the education point, Supervisor Valle was very good, but wife and I separate and wash the plastics, the yogurt, the honey before it goes into the recycle bins. But that's just two people in the city of Hayward. I'm sure that others do, but the great majority of folks do not rinse their plastics before they put it in the recycle bins. That's where the education comes in. So maybe Waste Management and TriSet and the state can come in and with an educational plan to convince everybody that that's the best thing that we can do. So my apologies for not being so positive on this, but that's the way I see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Marquez, do you have anything?
No, just more comments, not really questions. I appreciate the commission's work. I did have a question. Is this a commission that meets monthly or how often? Because it seems like there needs to be, based off the staff report, my understanding is finalizing the policy recommendations in July. So I guess I just want to ask Supervisor Valle, how close are we? Is this still just very preliminary, what's included in the staff report, or are you confident we'll be able to wrap this up in July?
Well, we submitted our statewide preliminary recommendations to Cal Recycle and to the legislature in January of 2021. Mm-hmm. Then our final release will be in July of 2021. The reason we targeted January is because that's when the legislative process begins. And some of our recommendations have been incorporated into new legislation reforming recycling. The next tier will be July. And then the commission will continue for another year after that. It's going to be a lengthy process. And as you know, it's difficult to change behavior anywhere when it comes to something that we've been conditioned to do, compounded by the fact that there are so many of us at home. Mm-hmm. And when you have more people at home, we've noticed, and Michael can correct me, people are not upgrading their garbage cans because they have more garbage. They are instead putting the extra garbage in the recycling carts. So consequently, we're winding up with a lot of organic material, food waste, that winds up in the recycling that should have been in a garbage can. Last thing I'll say, that we have a window of opportunity right now. Recycling started in Hayward and Union City in the late 80s and early 90s. We were way out ahead. And the reason we were so successful at those outsets was the school district and the city were working hand in hand. We were coming into classrooms, meeting with teachers and children, who then conditioned the parents on what to recycle, how to recycle. And that there has been a disconnect. We have two different franchises handling both of those jurisdictions. And until those two entities are in lockstep, it's going to be very hard to educate mom and dad if the kids are being told a different message at school or not being sent a message at all. So I think we're going to need everybody on board. And I would sincerely ask the commission to undergo some conversation at that level.
Yeah, I think that's happened on HLAC and on this committee. It's been brought up in terms of trying to align the contracts. So on that note, since all of this is still kind of in progress and things haven't been finalized, I know there's been some things implemented, but where are we at to staff with our contract? It seems to me with waste management and negotiations, I know we have the option to renew for 1 year. I don't remember if we've already done that or if we're approaching that first year, but what I'm trying to understand is aligning the waste management contract and TriSet contract with these new policies that are going to be coming into place. So could you speak to that?
Yes, Council Member, we have been discussing the new contract with Waste Management now for a number of months. We have made some progress. We are going to come back to you, I think, next time and report on our progress with Waste Management. Some of these new issues are being discussed to incorporate in the new agreement, but the rest of them we'll have to work on and make progress still.
It's not, are we in the last year though, and there's the option for automatic renewals? Can you remind me of that timeline?
Yes, it was a 5-year agreement that we had. It was going to end in March 1st of 2020, and we have 3 1-year extension. We are in the first or the second year of the extension right now. So
Okay.
we have approximately two more years to go.
Yeah, so I concur with the comments with regard to just aligning as many want us to get a good deal for Hayward, but also I think it would make a lot of sense if the school district, I believe Cal State Hayward is already aligned with waste management, but in order to get succinct and concise messaging to the entire community, I think it is going to be important that we're dealing with the same vendors. That's going to be really, really important. I know I've been a strong advocate in the past of sharing updated information on the haystack and the leaflet newsletter. I'm very concerned about these fires. So any way that we can educate our public, and I've seen battery drop-off locations, but what I'm hearing from the presentation today is you can actually put them in the plastic bag next to your bins when it's your weekly pickup. But I think information like that, I know it's on the card, but there's any way that we could further promote that and highlight that, because I think right now resources are very scarce and definitely want to minimize any more fires taking place in our community. So that's concerning to me. And then it's all education. As these plans roll out, we're definitely going to have to get this message out to our residents and use all channels, social media, YouTube, the newsletters, just to inform the public of all the changes. I appreciate the update, but it's daunting. There's a lot of challenges up ahead. So thank you for keeping us informed.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, as somebody who has actually been recycling since the 1970s, when I lived on the East Coast in the DC area, and we had to take our own stuff, and we bundled up newspapers and bottles. But I also grew up at a time when I was young. I mean, we had milk delivered to our doorstep in bottles that were then sent back out to be picked up by the milk company that dropped them off. I mean, things have changed so much, but it's a little overwhelming. And I have to admit that I wasn't aware of the lithium battery fire issue, and also that, I mean, even to know what a lithium battery is, I mean, I know what a battery is. It seems like I had to ask my husband, like, which batteries are lithium and what, I mean, that is not something that the average person necessarily knows. And I do think, and even in your presentation, I have to say, which was very good, but you all live this. And I know we talk government ease, we talk, in alphabet soup, but you can't, I mean, you got to bring it down to a level that people can understand, which is obviously it's great in the schools, but then, and that's often a way you can get kids to, go back home and say, you have to do this, mom and dad, because we learned about this and you're hurting the, animals in the bay or the, but not if it's inconsistent. And that's the big problem right now. There's a lot of inconsistency in what you can do here, whereas just over in the next town, people, it's hard to take the time. I'm just looking at our website now and there's a lot of great information on it, but it takes a while to get through it and really understand. And I think there are two different kinds of people too, people who want to do the right thing and they will make some effort. And then there are the people who don't care at all and will just throw anything anywhere and including in the street, as we know. So it's a huge problem. I go back to the 4 R's, and the first one is reduce. And we need to do that. And this is going to require the cooperation of a lot more. I mean, it's going to require producer cooperation, which I don't know is there. Then there's labeling. You talk about the different kinds of plastic. That is like, he's not going to remember all that. And so I look for the little triangle, but I don't always know whether this is okay or not. And I just, I try my best to do it as a consumer, and that's how I'm speaking right now, not as a mayor. And I know people are probably horrified at my, lack of specific knowledge about some of these. And yet I believe in it strongly. I believe, that we need to do this, and it doesn't help if we're sending our stuff to some other part of the world where they're just trashing it. We're all in the same world, as we know now, and, have the same oceans, and, we need to do this. And yet it's more of a problem than the city of Hayward or the TriSed company or any individual organization, even this commission, Supervisor Valle, unless you get real state attention to some consistencies throughout the state, some consistent messaging, something that people can really learn and follow. And I think many, if not most, people would do that and even try to do that now, but it's just changed so much. I mean, I'm looking at the website. You said steel and aluminum cans. Now I'm looking because but the metal pipe, the aluminum pipe plates, they're okay to put in or not?
Mayor, there really aren't. Aluminum pipe plates are usually contaminated with food, and that is an issue for us.
Pot pies would come in that kind of aluminum?
Yeah, that stuff, yeah. Then we'll find that stuff in our aluminum cans, and that can go separately, but we can't put that necessarily with our steel and tin cans.
Okay, but it can be recycled and you'll do something else with it.
Yes, aluminum cans and even aluminum foil. Let me give you a real quick anecdote that will give you a sense of the picture. We have the Buyback Recycling Center. This past Saturday, we recycled over nearly 10,000 pounds of plastic water bottles, 5 tons in one day. 5 tons. That's one-time use, single-use water bottles. They're pristine, they're clean, they look beautiful. The pile is huge, and they have to be recycled. So again, it's, as you were saying, reduce, but we need to change the methodology. An aluminum can be recycled about 24 times. Those plastic soda bottles, the first thing that you see on the label is do not reuse, do not refill. Throw it away or recycle it.
Yeah, it should be outlawed, obviously. And I know there have been efforts, but they're not. And a lot of people are taking it upon themselves not to, to choose not to use them. You see more and more water bottles. That became a thing to give out to people. I think what I'm trying to say is it's just going to take a lot to get people's attention. And, I think the fires, that's a pretty startling thing that, we lost a truck. I mean, even more serious, we've endangered people's lives. I don't know that people we're doing that out of, intentional intent to just not care. I mean, I think maybe a lot of people just don't know. And how do we change that? That is one of the biggest things. But, I just go back to those 4 R's. The first 2 are reduce and reuse. And we're not doing enough of that. Consistent labeling of, I mean, a lot of, my understanding is a lot of products even really aren't recyclable, but in a useful way, but they're allowed to put that little triangle on anyway for some reason. And, things like that. And those kind of changes need to almost take place at a national level, because you're talking about products that are, at least nationally distributed, if not, whatever comes in here would have to comply, I suppose. But it's a huge problem. So I know we're all committed to trying whatever we can do to help change it. And I think through these contract negotiations we're having now, but just working on some more. I mean, I know the summer fairs that we used to have, but of course didn't have last year and may not have this year, where you guys in our department put out, the little contests. I played those myself. They're a lot of fun, but it's going to take a lot more than that. It's going to take much better education. And I don't know, I think we all need to be thinking about how that can happen and getting people's attention. I think we really ought to be publicizing those fires and really letting people know. And it's not that hard. You don't have to take them somewhere. I think that's what people think, oh, I have to make a trip, and you don't have to do that. You can, so people need to know what they can and can't do. I think about washing. Francisco mentioned that, and I would always wash something that was food that might attract vermin, but what about detergent bottles? That's not going to attract vermin probably. So, and I've been told in the past, I know, just put the cap on and put it in there. Is that okay or not?
It's okay. The detergent makes our facility smell good.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, all right. Enough on this, but it's going to take a whole lot more, and we really need to work hard on this issue. And we all ought to be trying to think of ways we can get the word out and make people better understand how serious these issues are, how easy in many cases it is to do the recycling, but there need to be some national changes. Packaging just needs to change. It really does. A lot goes into the landfill that is something that shouldn't have even been necessary. And in fact, often sends me into conniptions when I'm trying to open something, but yet, there it is. Anyway, good luck to all of you. Did you want anything out of this presentation, Alex?
We do not.
Okay.
This was an informational item.
All right. Well, you got an earful, I know, but I mean, I didn't mean to direct it at you guys, but I really thank you so much for the efforts that you're making. Supervisor Valle, if you're really, trying to get things through, I know you'll do your best and get some changes, but it just seems a little daunting. And I just wanted to emphasize the point about not everybody is as knowledgeable as all of you. And we really have to reduce this to terms that people can really understand clearly.
Well, at the moment, we're putting more emphasis on going to Mars than handling our garbage. So that kind of goes to our priorities.
No, but all right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. And I guess we'll move on now to the next section, but thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Keep up the
Bye-bye.
good work. We will
Bye.
try to support you in any way we can, I think.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. So now are we going to go back to the urban
Yes.
water management plan?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this item is an interim report on preparing the city's 2020 urban water management plan. These plans are required once every 5 years. This time around, there are some serious challenges related to water supply for the region as a whole during droughts. Cheryl Menos, our water resources manager, is here. All of her technical difficulties have been resolved, and she's ready to present the item.
It's always a challenge.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon. My name is Cheryl Menos, and I'm the Water Resources Manager in the Utilities Division. And today I'm going to provide you with an update and an overview of the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan. Next slide, please. I'm going to discuss the Urban Water Management Plan Act, components of the plan and its key elements, review important milestones and the schedule to meet those milestones, and give you an update on staff's progress in completing the plan. Excuse me. Next slide. Just to give you some background info on the Urban Water Management Plan, the California legislature enacted the Urban Water Management Planning Act in 1983. The act requires that urban water suppliers providing over 3,000 acre-feet per year or serving more than 3,000 connections prepare an urban water management plan. I had to get your faces off of my screen so I can see my screen. So excuse me with that. So anyway, the Urban Water Management Plan Act, it applies to the city of Hayward and Hayward's water supply system. We have about 36,000 connections that serve approximately 160,000 residential, business, and municipal customers. The purpose of the act is to require water suppliers to prepare these plans to provide a framework for long-term water resource planning at the local level to ensure adequate water supplies to meet current and future demands in normal, dry, and multiple dry years. It also helps the state with their water supply planning. So the plan, as Alex mentioned, must be updated every 5 years and adopted by the supplier's governing body. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start off by letting you know why we're preparing the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan in 2021. As I mentioned, we are required to prepare the plan every 5 years, and the reporting period for this plan is 2020 through 2045. We have to complete the 2020 data, so we have a current base year on which to proceed with our plans. The Urban Water Management Plan will build on the city's 2015 Urban Water Management Plan, which was the last reporting period. There are 5 topics or key elements that agency urban water management plans are required to include. And these are system and service area, water supply reliability, demand management measures, water shortage contingency planning, and compliance with Water Conservation Act of 2009, otherwise known as SB 7x7. So jumping back to the first bullet, system and service area, this is a description of Hayward's water supply system and service area characteristics. It's pretty straightforward. Next slide, please. The second key element is water supply reliability, which is significant and has a number of sub-elements. The first one being water demand projections. Water agencies are required to anticipate and plan for water use over a 25-year planning horizon. Developing water demand projections for an extended period of time is somewhat of an art form. Water demands vary from year to year, depending on factors such as precipitation, economic conditions, and housing growth. Any one of these factors may impact water use. Demand projections were developed in 2019 using detailed methodology that includes usage in prior years, residential and business growth, water conservation savings, and water efficient appliances. Because this analysis that's required for the Urban Water Management Plan has become increasingly complex, the City Council authorized the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Madaus Water Management to prepare the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan. Staff is reviewing these demand projections and our assumptions with the consultant to verify that they're still reasonable and defensible for inclusion in the urban water management plan. Next slide, please. So the next sub-element is water supplies. The urban water management plan must document an agency's planned and potential water supplies. Since 1963, Hayward has received 100% of its potable water from San Francisco Public Utilities Commission's regional water system. In response to Council's goal to create a more sustainable community and increase water supply reliability, staff is developing a recycled water project to provide a locally sustainable and reliable water resource. Construction was recently completed on the initial phase of the project. The city also maintains 5 groundwater wells permitted for emergency use only. Next slide, please. The next sub-element is water supply and drought reliability. Drought risk assessment. Agencies must assess water supply reliability during normal and multi-year droughts. So the PUC has verified their intent to deliver sufficient supplies to meet projected wholesale customer demands through 2045 during normal precipitation years. And this includes Hayward as well. Just as an aside, at this point, the year has been fairly dry and the PUC has indicated that their current total system storage is about 80%. But having said that, precipitation and snowpack are a little bit below average this year. Next slide, please. So, however, the SFPUC is projecting significant reductions in available water supply during drought periods due to the implementation of the Bay Delta Plan. And this could severely impact wholesale customers' ability to meet demands during drought periods, and this includes Hayward. So the Bay Delta Plan has been approved by the State Water Resources Control Board, and that requires increasing flows on 3 of the San Joaquin River tributaries from February through June in every year type, including wet, normal, and dry. These additional flows are intended to help support the health of the Delta. The State Board plans to implement the Bay Delta Plan in 2022, assuming all of the required approvals are received by that time. There's a number of lawsuits that have been filed regarding the Bay Delta Plan. So, if it gets implemented in 2022, we will see, but at this point in time, that is the plan. So just to reiterate, the Bay Delta Plan would impact the preparation of the wholesale agencies and Hayward's urban water management plan. So this means that because of these cutbacks, we are going to have to prepare and plan for this decreased amount in our deliveries. There's been a lot of communication from the PUC and BOSCA regarding this issue, and discussions are still underway since this is such a huge impact to agencies, especially during a drought period. For example, for Hayward, beginning in the 3rd year of a drought, cutbacks could be as severe as 50%. So we want to make sure that the information that we prepare collectively as a region and for the individual agencies really, speaks to this issue, and we want to make sure that we can figure out a way to meet all of our needs in a safe way. Next slide, please. So the 3rd element of the plan is demand management measures. These are measures that agencies implement to reduce water demand, including water conservation programs and projects, as well as plumbing code changes. The 4th element is water shortage contingency planning. All of the agencies are required to include a water shortage contingency plan in the urban water management plan. So it's a plan within a plan. This is where we would include information about meeting supply shortages that I just discussed. And as I said, we'll need additional information in order to complete this section. Next slide, please. So the fifth element is targeted reductions in per capita use. The Act requires that the reduction in per capita use by 10% in 2015 and 20% in 2020. Agencies are required to establish water use targets based on a selected methodology and adopt the targets in the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan. Hayward met and exceeded its targets in 2015 and 2020. Hayward has one of the lowest per capita water uses in the area. Currently, we're at 47.4 gallons per capita per day for residential use and a total of 87 gallons per capita per day overall. Next slide, please. So where are we now in the development of the plan? Staff has developed the water demand projections for 2019 and is reviewing and verifying information, as I had previously mentioned. We have completed the first 3 of 10 chapters of the plan, and those 3 chapters include information regarding Hayward's water system, population, demographics, and socioeconomics of the community. Chapters 4 through 6 have been received by staff from the consultant and are currently under review. And those chapters include information on Hayward's demands, supplies, and water use targets. And again, as I had mentioned, we're evaluating information from the SFPUC and from BOSCA regarding the Bay Delta information and the potential supply shortages. Next slide, please. So here's a list of the key plan activities and the schedule for completion. We have received the information from the SFPUC regarding the supply reliability. In other words, the Bay Delta information. And we have been working with PUC and BOSCA on finalizing common language that we will all use in our urban water management plan since we get our supplies from the PUC. And it says January through February, but I just received another document. So it is continuing into this month. Moving forward into May, May 10th, we plan to bring the draft plan back to this committee for review. And the following day on May 11th, we'll begin the 14-day public comment period. That will run from May 11th through May 24th. Then we plan to have a public hearing with the City Council, and the intention is to review and adopt that plan, and it is tentatively scheduled for May 25th. During June, we plan to incorporate comments we receive and finalize the plan and get it ready for submission by the deadline of July 1st. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll ask for any public comment that we have on this item, but I don't see any hands raised among the attendees. So I'll go then to Councilmember Marquez for questions and comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say hello, Cheryl. I don't know if we've met, so nice to meet you.
Have not. It's nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Albeit virtually.
Yes. So thank you for your presentation and the staff report. Everything makes sense. I understand why we need to do this and the importance of it. And it's really good to hear that Hayward has been on the conservative side with water consumption. So I don't know what we can attribute that to, but hopefully we can keep it up. So I was happy to read that. But one comment on page 4 of 6, I just wanted to make sure that we are communicating with development services. There are, I would say, thousands of housing projects in the pipeline. So just wanting to make sure that that's being captured. So can you just speak to that briefly?
Yes, council member. So last week, another staff member and I, we did meet with the planning department, and we did have this discussion regarding all of the upcoming projects, and have asked for that information so we can properly account for it and incorporate it into the plan.
Okay, great. And are you looking at just projects already permitted, or do you know like kind of the depth of what gets included?
Our ask was for everything that they know is coming down the pipeline, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
In follow up to that question, did that include the RENA numbers we're going to be issued as we redo our housing element of our general plan, and to the satisfaction of the the state, because the RENA numbers are like more than double what our last round of RENA numbers were. Not that we'll necessarily meet those, but that's what's being asked of us.
I know, Alex, can you comment on that?
Well, during normal years, Madam Mayor, San Francisco has said that they have enough supply of water to serve us. Actually, the water usage in the region has been going down rather than going up. Hayward, for instance, peaked at 19 million gallons a day several years ago, and now we are at about 14 to 15 million gallons a day. So those normal supplies are not a problem, not for our expanded housing and other things. The problem is during the drought. When we have a drought, there is a problem with cutbacks, and we are working on it. We are not different from other cities, Redwood City, Mountain View, others. Maybe different from Alameda County Water because they have different sources of water. But cities that rely on San Francisco have very little choice. Having said that, though, for large developments, if there is a development that either has 500 housing units included in it, or the cumulative water usage for an industrial commercial development is over equivalent of 500 dwelling units, we need to do a study before the city council can approve, or the planning commission can approve the project. And that requires a water assessment to make sure that water is available during normal years and drought years and what have you.
Who is requiring us to do that?
This is state requires us. There is a state mandate that anything over 500 will have to have a water supply study done. We have prepared that before for a couple of different projects, and we'll have to do it again if we have a project with 500 dwelling units or equivalent water usage in it.
Okay, I'll go to Council Member Zermania now.
Cheryl Menos, nice meeting you. Thank you for the
Nice meeting you.
Mayor, let's see, I have 4 quick questions and 1 comment or recommendation. Let's see, page 3 of the staff report says that there are 2 tiers if there's a drought, tier 1 and tier 2. Which one would we fall under, or does it matter?
Cheryl, you want to take that, or you want me to take it?
If you would like, go ahead.
Okay, so the tier 1 is when there is a drought of up to 10% cutback, and tier 2 is when there is a drought that the region will have to cut back up to 20%, and then things above that. That 20% is then divided differently between member agencies of the BOSCA.
Got it. Okay. And then you kind of answered my second question, which was how are our residents doing in water conservation? You said something 10, 20%, 10%, and we're looking at 20%, right?
So our residents are doing exceedingly well.
Okay.
We are one of 26 customers of San Francisco, the so-called wholesale customers. Our water usage, residential per capita, is the 4th lowest among the 26, and others that have lower consumption enjoy maybe cooler weather like Daly City is, or Coastside, or they have different supplies of water, so it's hard to know how they are doing with San Francisco water.
Okay.
We are also, there are also 416 water agencies in the state of California. Our residential water usage per capita is the 11th among the 416. So it is remarkably low what we are doing in Hayward, and it is due to the leadership that council has had and the programs that we have implemented, the rate structure that we have in place, the incentives that we provide, that the usage is so low.
Right. So at the moment you stated something like $15 million of water usage by a resident per day.
15 million gallons, yes.
Per day.
Per day, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, good. Let's see. And then we have 5 wells for emergency usage for a city that's over 160,000. That seems kind of low, or
right.
Are they sufficient?
So just to put things in perspective, you remember that I said our average usage today is 15 million gallons a day. If we ran these 5 wells together, and if they produce at the peak capacity that they are capable of producing right now, they can give us approximately 13 million gallons of water a day.
13.
So it's very close to our total consumption. And the thinking is that during an emergency, when like there is no water available from San Francisco, let's say, we are going to implement very, very harsh conservation measures, severely limiting outside watering and other things. So we should be able to live within the 13 MGD, if that comes to be.
All right. So my recommendation for a possible future drought emergency would be for us to not to go out and buy 1 million 12-ounce plastic bottled, but to rather give out or hand out or purchase 5-gallon glass mugs, because as we saw from the previous, that's the first thing I see when there's an emergency. People go to Costco and they buy these, 24 plastic cases of plastic. So that's something that I'd rather not see when that emergency happens. So hopefully that's in the plans as a contingency. Do not buy, the 12-ounce bottles of bottled water in plastic. Thank you.
Fortunately, we receive 100% of our water from San Francisco Regional Water System, which has one of the best water qualities in the country. There is no need to purchase bottled water. Actually, I'm sure you know that Pepsi plant that is in Hayward and produces Aquafina, basically they use the municipal water from the city and bottle it and then sell it. So the water quality is very, very, very similar, extremely good, and there is no need to purchase. Just having a reusable glass water bottle is good to fill it from the tap.
Yeah. Well, as our city went into non-plastic water for our meetings, I'm hoping that we can maybe extend that throughout the city and start educating people. Hey, no more plastic in your water.
Yes.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Mayor.
Solves both the problems we've just been talking about, the reducing the plastic waste and
Plastic.
reducing water consumption in general. I just, for one question I have is, what about chapters 7 through 10? You talked about the first 3 done, the second 3, what's in them. What about the rest of the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We are in the process of developing this plan. So we've completed the first 3 chapters. We've just got chapters 4 through 6 that we're reviewing, and we will continue to completion. And the deadline, as I had mentioned, we plan to have the draft to you in May.
Okay. And we will be meeting any deadlines, because I mean, this is supposed to be the 2020 update, and we're kind of heading into the middle of 2021, but I would imagine that COVID interrupted a lot of.
No, actually, the deadline for submission is July 1st. So this plan it's in 5-year increments, but it covers 25-year period.
Yeah,
So from 2020 to 2045.
Okay.
So we're on track.
Okay. I have to say this, the situation with the Bay Delta plan is, is one that I know we're quite worried about. And especially right now, it would be one thing if we could expect that we experience that one every, I don't know how many years, drought in the patterns we've seen in the past, but that's not what we're seeing now. And I think it's very worrisome as to whether we're seeing a permanent reduction in rainfall. This is, we are clearly in a drought right now again. And with the warming and all that, we depend a lot on snowpack. The climate is definitely changing, and that is going to affect our water supply. And I think that, I know we're looking to really analyze and make people aware of the potential impacts. And I do think one of those is the housing, the carrying capacity of this area, as to whether we really can accommodate all of the units that are being, that are being asked of us. And Hayward is actually one of the better cities in terms of, getting out there and trying to accommodate those units. But one thing we can do, and I know we're moving in this direction, but everything we can to tighten our building standards so that we are building, if we're building new housing, it is highly water efficient housing. Really applaud you on the, the efforts on the recycling water, and like to see that it actually expanded. Yeah, so those are my comments. Good job. We'll look forward to seeing the final plan. But I do think we have a lot to worry about right now. And I think one area where I would like to see more concentration is more water efficient buildings and upgrades to, and I know there are a lot of, there are programs, there are rebates. We actually just talked to someone today in this house about getting the tankless water heater, which we do not have, but that helps save water. We actually put water in buckets and go water our landscape with the cold water until the shower gets hot. But, that's very labor intensive, shall we say. But I think, the more we can tighten our building requirements to provide for water efficiency, that will help. So thank you all. And welcome to you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Good to see you and meet you virtually. Hopefully we all get someday actually in person, but someday soon, I hope. But in the meantime, we will move on now to the next item, which is the Advanced Metering Infrastructure Customer Portal Pilot Program.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the committee is aware, Public Works and Utilities Department has completed the implementation of the city's AMI infrastructure. Staff is currently working on developing a customer portal to allow customers to interact with the system and know what their water consumption is. Kate Byrne, our management analyst, is here to present the report. Kate, take it away.
Yes, absolutely. Can everyone see my screen all right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So good afternoon, members of the committee. Today, I will be providing an update on the Water Customer Portal Pilot Program, as Alex mentioned. To summarize, for those of you not familiar with the program, the city is currently preparing to launch an online software through which Hayward water customers will be able to log in and view details about their account, like bill amounts and hourly water consumption. We recently pilot tested 2 different platforms with the help of a group of pilot customers, and today I'm going to be sharing the results of that program. The last time we discussed this item with the committee was in November, at which time I provided an overview of the program and a tour of both platforms involved. Today, before diving into the feedback received from our pilot participants, I wanted to just provide a quick overview of our AMI system. The city's AMI system, which stands for Advanced Metering Infrastructure, is comprised of 36,000 meters that are installed at all of our customer endpoints. AMI meters differ from traditional water meters in that they do not need to be read in the field. Rather, the readings registered by AMI meters are transmitted over a network to 28 data collection units. From these units, they are transmitted to an online portal. Staff are currently able to access citywide AMI meter reads through the online portal provided by our AMI vendor, Aclara. However, that is only an internal-facing portal. We're currently in the process of implementing a customer-facing portal, and this process began with our pilot program so that we could work with our customers to ensure that whichever platform we selected was best suited to meet their needs. The pilot program launched last October and lasted 4 months, concluding at the end of February. 100 customers volunteered to pilot test the 2 platforms involved, of which about 70 created accounts on the platforms and about an average of 35 actively responded to my survey questions. Mayor and council were also invited to participate if they were interested, and about 20 staff members also participated in the pilot to provide their feedback. The 2 piloted vendors included AquaHawk and WaterSmart. This is a screenshot of the first thing a customer sees when they log into AquaHawk. Don't try to understand this information. This is just a blanket screenshot of what a customer would see. Just to quickly refresh on the functionality of the platform, up in the left-hand corner here, a customer would be able to see their customer information. In the center, they would be able to see the dates of their current billing period, their last statement balance, the estimated bill that they currently have in the current billing period based on their water use to date, as well as a projected bill that AquaHawk projects their bill amount will be by the end of the billing period based on that consumption. They also have the opportunity to pay online by clicking on this button, which actually links them out to Hayward's HSS system, which is the online platform through which customers can currently make online payments for their water. They could click on this export button to export their data to Excel, or they could set billing or consumption thresholds by clicking on the My Thresholds button. Down at the bottom here, customers can see their hourly consumption or daily consumption or any other of a variety of frequencies that they might choose. Below, they can also see temperature and rainfall data. And on the right-hand side is a little screen where their notifications would pop up. And those notifications, like a leak alert, for example, would pop up here. They gray out once they're resolved. So in the free response feedback received during the pilot program from customers, customers did tend to use words like busy, cluttered, or not intuitive when viewing this platform. So I just wanted to mention that while we can see the platform altogether. Now, moving on to WaterSmart. This is a screenshot of the first thing a customer sees when they log into WaterSmart. AquaHawk and WaterSmart are populated with all of the same data, but they present the data in a very, very different way, as you'll see here. So this is what customers first see when they log into WaterSmart. This is the home screen. The first thing they see is the bill amount for their most recent billing period. They also see the average daily use for that billing period, and there are also some comparison charts immediately below it. If they scroll further down onto the home page, they can see their water score, which basically compares them to other households of similar size. And customers can actually customize what their household profile is to make sure they're being compared against accurately sized households. They can also see recommended actions for further reducing their water use or saving money on their bills. And then there's an additional set of tools down here. The main one I want to draw your attention to is the leak check functionality. If a customer is suspected to have a leak, they can actually click through this step-by-step tutorial to help them identify where that leak might be and how to fix it. And from this screen, customers also have an easy opportunity to actually make sure that they're being alerted in their preferred way in the event they have a leak. And they can also set other billing and usage thresholds, just like AquaHawk. Now on the next screen, this is our billing tab. Again, it just kind of reiterates the information we saw in the home, which is the current billing amount. They can also see their past bill amounts. And like AquaHawk, if they click Pay Bill, they can be redirected to HSS to pay their bill online. From this screen, they can also see their forecasted bill amounts based on their current water usage. And they can, again, have more opportunities to compare their bills to past billings. Under the Track tab, customers can see the breakdown of their consumption, similar to the view you saw in AquaHawk. They can select, annual, daily, weekly. They can also drill down to the hour. It's up to them. They can select a date range to look at and whatnot. On the Take Action tab, they can see recommended, basically an extended list of recommended actions to improve their conservation and also reduce their bill amounts. And then finally, on the Settings tab, I didn't grab a screenshot of this, but basically you can just control your customer settings, make sure you're being reached out to in your preferred method. You can adjust your thresholds, and this is just where customers would handle all of their settings. So diving right into the feedback received from customers as far as their general response to the portals go. The first question I asked was, which portal did customers find easiest to register for? And about half of the participating customers actually indicated that they found them both equally easy. But of those who felt that one was easier than another, 13% indicated that they preferred AquaHawk, and a clear majority here indicated that they found WaterSmart easier. And also, as I navigate through these charts, I just want to mention that some of the percentages are going to be slightly different than what was included in your reports, because we had a few more responses trickle in over the last week that I wanted to include, but it's all the same sentiment and the same ultimate results. The next question was, which portal, or both portals have a distinct look and feel, which one did you prefer? As you can see here, there was a clear preference for WaterSmart's look and feel. The next question, how clear was the information presented on the platforms? So as you can see here, WaterSmart in the teal, about 90% of respondents identified that it had a clarity level of 4 or 5, while AquaHawk's clarity, the responses were a bit more diverse, with just over 50% rating AquaHawk as having a 3 or lower clarity level. Very similar results when I asked about ease of navigation. Very similar, but slightly different. About 90% indicated a 4 or 5 ease of navigation level for WaterSmart in the teal, whereas again, a little bit over 50% indicated that they felt that AquaHawk was a 3 or lower as far as ease of navigation. And finally, one directly asked for their preference regarding which customer portal vendor to proceed with long term. There was a very clear preference for WaterSmart at 73%. 15% indicated their preference would be AquaHawk, and about 12% expressed that they didn't have a preference between the two. So With that said, I also wanted to touch on some of the future desired features that customers brought up. Those two features included bill payment in platform and the ability to see past billing statements in PDF form. These are both features that staff do want to implement, and we're not able to for purposes of the pilot due to its limited scope. However, we are going to be investigating implementing it for a citywide rollout. As far as actually providing bill payment in platform, that will be a little bit different of an exercise because it is going to involve bringing another third-party vendor in. So again, it's going to take some exploration of feasibility, but we heard our customers, they're interested in this, and it's something we're interested in as well. So we're going to be further investigating that. And finally, given all of the information presented by our customers, it is ultimately our recommendation to the committee that we proceed long-term with WaterSmart. And depending on the committee's feedback, we will be presenting a report for council's consideration to secure authorization to actually negotiate this vendor agreement. And I'm available for any questions.
All right. Okay. I have some, if you guys don't. Would you talk about the My Thresholds?
Yes.
I didn't quite understand that one.
Sure, absolutely. So a customer can go onto either of those buttons in either portal, and they can basically say, oh, if I am on trend to use XYZ gallons of water by the end of the billing period, please alert me. Or after I use XYZ gallons of water, please alert me.
So
similarly,
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to add that similarly, if they're on trend to reach XYZ dollar amount by the end of the billing period, they could be notified. Or after they surpass that threshold, they could be notified, depending on how they set the thresholds up.
So that, yeah, just to be notified of certain amounts of
yes.
You don't want to go beyond or something. So okay, you're just talking about residential right now. Do we have a similar program for commercial users or?
So yeah, commercial users will also be able to use this platform, and we had several commercial users within our pilot group, but it was predominantly residential.
Oh, okay, so but commercial is included, and they will be getting the same because I'm sure they would
yes.
really be interested in using
yes.
some of that. And then your timetable, maybe for getting it implemented.
Sure.
Bringing this to everyone.
Yes. So yeah, we're definitely excited and trying to move things forward as quickly as we can. My goal is to, pending council approval and, pending that they concur with our recommendation, I would hope that we can enter into our vendor agreement by the end of the fiscal year and ideally have a citywide rollout by fall.
Great. Okay. I see my colleagues have excellent report, and I'm really having this being only my second meeting of the Sustainability Committee. I have to say I'm really glad I joined it because I've learned a lot at this meeting, and this is really interesting. And so I'll go to Councilmember Zermeño.
Mayor, thank you. We've been having interesting meetings like this for many, many, many years, and the staff and the team is tremendous. They are actually greener than I am. Kate, you mentioned a third person, a third, what is that? What's the term? I forgot. Vendor. A third vendor is needed for me.
Oh, a third-party vendor, yes. So basically, and this is the case, whether we proceeded with AquaHawk or WaterSmart, it's still the same. All of these customer portal organizations can only repackage your water consumption and billing data in a customer-friendly way. They cannot provide bill payment services within their platform. So we would have to contract with a third-party vendor that works closely with the portal vendor to basically implement a single sign-on payment option, which would alleviate customers' need to, click out and be redirected to HSS in order to pay online.
Okay, so they would directly pay that, let's say, Water Smart directly, and then that vendor would then send the money over to Hayward.
Without getting too into the weeds, sort of, but it's more that they would basically be sending that payment through the third party vendor. It wouldn't be going through WaterSmart.
Okay, I got it. Okay. Thank you very much. Very good report, Kate.
Thank you.
Marquez?
Thank you. I just wanted to commend you on your great work. It was fun participating in the app. Had some difficulties initially with one of them, but I'm glad it worked out. And the data is really, really key. So I think this is going to be a great tool, and hope that in the future we could add that third-party vendor, because I want to make sure we are making it as easy as possible for people to pay their bills. And I know that the water bill is one way that we do outreach to members of our community. So we're going to have to be creative as more and more people transition to online. I still receive the paper, but just something to keep in mind. And Alex, I don't know if you have this answer, but how are we doing in terms of collecting water fees from our community members? Is it because with the pandemic, are we seeing a large percentage of households unable to pay their bill, or where do we stand with that right now?
You know, we are doing remarkably good compared to other water agencies. As we get together and managers from different agencies talk about their problems, we do not experience the same kind of problem. Maybe it is related to the fact that our water bills are relatively reasonable, or that we have great customers that they know that this is a service that will have to be maintained by their payment. But I can tell you that we are not in a very bad shape when it comes to that.
That's good to hear. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I would assume that my two colleagues will join me in.
I'll move the item. Sorry,
and,
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Yeah, to recommend WaterSmart.
WaterSmart, yes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you got the recommendation, and we'll look forward to seeing this at full council. And yeah, I've decided I'm taking over the water bill payment function in my house, so I can benefit from all this cool stuff. And I'm very much looking forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good work on that. That is great. So that brings us, I think, to our final item, which is the proposed 2021 agenda planning review. So anyone have any comments that they want to make about this?
Just wanted to quickly mention that we are going to bring WMAC franchise agreement to you in May, as you talked about, and EBC default electricity product choice that we have to make a choice now will also come to you in May. In July, we will be reporting our results of our REACH code that has been in effect now for a number of months, a year. And then a draft ordinance on the implications of SB 1383 and what we need to do to implement that. And then an annual report on the recycled water program that we have had, and the state that it is in right now, and what has been achieved in the past year. So those will be items coming to you in the next 2 meetings.
Okay. Any Councilmember Marquez?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add, do you have another slide for future items?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Next one, yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to encourage us to add at our meeting our last meeting had asked for us to have staff look into the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. So I'd like to see that be added to the list of items, and also ask if we can also look at the resolution that was proposed by community member Peter Myers today. resolution supporting zero emission vehicle sales ban in California by 2030. So if we could please add those two propose exploration of supporting those two resolutions to the list of unscheduled items.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Trevino?
I agree with colleague Marquez on that issue. I did receive an email from Eric about my proposal or the idea of banning future gasoline stations, and I understand it. So it really would be that difficult for staff to come up. Is it that work intensive to come up with some kind of a staff report on banning these things? This is the the newspaper article came out today about Petaluma. I don't want to cost the further report and further work, but the email does state that what we set up, a future gas station has to go through the city, through the planning commission and then city council. But I just want to go out there and tell the world, no more in Hayward. I'm just throwing it. Is it really that work intensive? And I know it's not a priority because we just had our meeting, a priority meeting 2 meetings ago, but I would love us to be the second city in the United States to say no to more gasoline stations. Petaluma beat us to it.
As Eric, I think, sent you an email, it requires a zoning ordinance amendment. So it requires some steps to jump through, and it takes some time. We would be happy to look into it and see what does it take to bring it to you for discussion.
I don't want to cost. I'm always cognizant of the fact that we don't want to put too many ovens or pots in your oven. So I really want to make sure that that's not happen. But I know that Petaluma folks have been are being asked to share what they did, their particular language. So I don't know if that's something that would help out. We have 26 gasoline stations. In my mind, that's enough. So anyway, and as a matter of fact, I put it out on social media and I didn't get any negatives. I'm surprised. Nobody's going to burn me an effigy for proposing it. So I was shocked.
Practically, we are not going to have any more gas stations. As you say, the 46 that we have is enough.
Yeah. But I want to be the second city in the United States to go on and do this.
Well,
yes.
I think, pretty much the way what we've already done is going to make it very difficult. And even at that, even before we did that, we have had one in the past. I can't even remember when we had one before the Costco one that just came to us. Well, the 2 Costco ones have been the only ones. We haven't had a gasoline application since I've been on the planning commission, I think, and it was decades ago now, it seems. So I don't know that.
So let's just make it. Let's just put it in black and white. That's what I'm asking.
Understood.
But I'm a minority, Alex, and as you can tell, I'm a minority in many ways.
It isn't that we don't want to. It isn't that we don't want to do it. I think we are doing it because we've made it difficult, and it's not like it's a problem that is jumping out at us right now because we're not even getting applications. So I know your competitive nature, Councilmember Zoreno, makes you, want to have Hayward be first in everything, and I really applaud that. But
we were going to be first in green bicycle lanes, and Livermore beat us to it. By a month.
That our other Bay Area cities are following our great example of being leaders in environmental change, and
And Eric, thank you very much for the email, by the way. Anyway,
thank you.
So that's my push. Thanks.
I didn't have anything. The list looks good to me. And so with that, we're at committee member staff announcements and referrals.
Madam Mayor, if I may, this evening at 6:30, there is a community meeting for safe routes for seniors. We are going to make a presentation and get community input. I'm very excited about the project that we have put together for the 4 intersections in the downtown. I want to see what kind of feedback we get. Very creative work has gone into it, and we are excited about it. And this is the beginning of a longer term effort to improve intersections and walkability, not only in the downtown, but in other parts of the city as well. It will be a multi-year effort.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited about that too. Hoping to at least get in, see a little bit of it. But yeah, I saw the promotional stuff, and yeah, it looks very exciting. And I know that some of those intersections in the downtown have been really considered problematic, and I can remember complaints about and getting into that age group, well, being in that age group, but actually starting to have a few mobility problems myself. I can understand how people feel when they can't run across the street. So,
and the good thing is that everyone can benefit from, walkability and easier, navigating and crossing.
Yes. So, okay. So, Member Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge our Environmental Services Manager, Eric Pearson. I think last week there was service awards, I believe is 20 years. Is that correct? So just wanted to acknowledge him for his commitment and service to our community. We really appreciate all the great contributions you bring to our community. So congratulations.
Thank you.
20 years. It went by fast, didn't it, Eric? Well, yeah, the whole department. I know I've worked a lot with Eric too on certain, in certain areas. And I think the announcement that the Actera, you just put out an announcement that the Actera Awards are coming up again, and kind of missed that. This will be the second year in a row that I think I tried to tune in last year, but it was, I don't know, virtual is just
not the same.
Not the same, no. But in any event, missed going to those events with you guys. And so anyway, I don't think I have anything. So with that, unless anyone.
I also want to join in the Eric Pearson fan club, because he has ridden this bicycle to work. And he does give me some good hints before our stopwaste.org meetings. And he's going to be one of our speakers at Chabot College's Earth Week, talking about what we're doing. Yeah. So anyway, that is in April coming up. So
yeah, we're going to talk about the Shoreline Master Plan.
Yes. Excellent.
The other day when I was in my kitchen trying to figure out if something was recyclable or not, I was thinking, I wish I could visit Eric's kitchen. I bet you have things set up in a way that, everybody puts everything in the right place, right?
We try.
So, okay. Well, anyway, yes, congratulations. And, we're looking forward to the next 20, huh? So with that, and with no further comments from anyone, this meeting is adjourned. So we can all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Recording stopped.